Once upon a time, in a small village on the edge of a great forest, there lived a sweet little girl who was known to everyone as Little Red Riding Hood. She got her name because she always wore a red cloak with a hood that her grandmother had made for her. One day, her mother called her and said, "Your grandmother is very ill. Take this basket of food and bring it to her. But remember, don't talk to strangers and stay on the path." Little Red Riding Hood agreed and set off through the forest. As she walked along the path, she admired the flowers and listened to the birds singing. Suddenly, a wolf stepped out from behind a tree. "Good day, Little Red Riding Hood," he said. "Where are you going in such a hurry?" "I'm going to my grandmother's house to bring her this basket of food," she replied. Remembering her mother's warning, she quickly added, "And I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." The wolf smiled a wicked smile. "Your grandmother's house? How lovely! Where does she live?" "Just through the forest, under the 3 large oak trees," said Little Red Riding Hood, forgetting her mother's warning in her eagerness to be polite. "That sounds delightful," said the wolf, and with a flick of his tail, he disappeared into the trees. Little Red Riding Hood continued on her way, picking flowers as she went. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house. He knocked on the door and mimicked Little Red Riding Hood's voice. "Grandmother, it's me, Little Red Riding Hood," he called. "Come in, my dear," the grandmother replied, thinking it was her granddaughter. As soon as the wolf entered, he pounced on the grandmother and locked her in the closet. He then put on one of her nightgowns and her nightcap and climbed into bed, pulling the covers up to his chin. When Little Red Riding Hood arrived at her grandmother's house, she noticed something seemed odd. "Grandmother, what big ears you have!" she exclaimed. "All the better to hear you with, my dear," said the wolf in disguise. "Grandmother, what big eyes you have! All the better to see you with, my dear." "Grandmother, what big hands you have! All the better to hug you with, my dear." "But grandmother, what big teeth you have! All the better to eat you with," growled the wolf, and he jumped out of the bed to grab her. Little Red Riding Hood screamed and tried to run, but the wolf was too fast. Just when he was about to catch her, a woodcutter who had been passing by heard her cries and rushed into the house. He raised his axe and struck the wolf, saving Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother. They opened the closet and freed the grandmother, who hugged Little Red Riding Hood tightly. "Thank you, kind woodcutter," she said. "You have saved us both." Little Red Riding Hood learned an important lesson that day. Always listen to your parents and never talk to strangers. And so, she and her grandmother lived happily and safely ever after.